Today is February 3rd, 2021, and the video today is specifically for those of us who are Christians like myself. You obviously can watch this even if you're not a Christian, but you might not agree with all the same values. A problem today is that a lot of Christians, including myself, don't really get it in terms of like certain things that we're called to do in the Bible. And so what I want to talk about is suffering, the importance of embracing righteous suffering as a Christian. And now, I already said in a video earlier this week that if you're suffering because of sin, then that's not suffering that God calls anybody to. That's suffering that is that's sin. Sin just is why the world suffers to begin with. Whether it's sin in other people, sin in you, or it's just sin within the creation or the spiritual realm, whatever. But when it comes to righteous suffering, that's harder to accept because you don't deserve it, you see. Case in point, the book of Job. So the book of Job is, many believe, the oldest book in the Bible. It's older even than Genesis. And it has a lot of big, profound things in it. A lot of revelation if you're looking for it. But basically, here's how the book goes. In a nutshell, there's this guy named Job, and he's a very righteous guy. It's not like he's without sin. He's not Jesus, but like it uses the word blameless. He's not a guy who does anything wrong in his community. Everybody knows he's a good guy. He even thinks about the hearts of his children, and said, maybe in their heart my children sin, so he offers sacrifices just in case. He really loves God and cares about God and is a righteous man. But then, unbeknownst to Job, there's this conversation that happens in heaven, and we get to see it, and it's a conversation between God and Satan, and basically God is bragging about Job and saying to Satan, have you seen him? Like, he's doing such a great job. And Satan says, oh, that's only because you've blessed him so much. You know, if you take away his blessings, then, you know, he will turn away from you. Basically, he will curse you. So God accepts the challenge, and he says to Satan, all that he has is in your hand, but don't take his life. And so Satan goes, and basically, to make this faster, describing the story, what ends up happening is Satan's allowed to take everything away from Job, kill all his children, destroy his home, and even make him sick, like hurt his whole body's covered in sores and pain physically, to the point where even his wife, whom Satan does not kill, I think because the Bible says two become one flesh, and even though there's a lot of jokes about that, but his wife says you should just curse God and die and give up. Don't have integrity anymore. Don't honor God. Like, why would God do this to you? And then Job's friends come around and they mourn with him, but then they start having a talk with him about, well, why would God do this to you? It must be because you did something wrong. There's no way, Job, that you could be suffering like this unless you sinned against God. All three of his friends say this. And they go on and on, back and forth in this conversation where Job is defending himself and saying, no, I've done nothing wrong. I'm a righteous man, and I've done nothing wrong, and I don't deserve this. I don't know why God would do this to me. That's what Job says. And then all his friends gang up on him basically and say, no, you must have sinned. And that's the majority of the book. And then finally, this young guy who, we don't really know who he was, but somehow he was around. His name was Elihu. And some believe that he was the author of Job. He was the guy who wrote the book. But Elihu, he comes in and he says, he basically just defends God. He rebukes all of Job's friends, and he rebukes Job as well, which not as many Christians talk about that, but and he just defends God. He defends God's honor. And then after Elihu speaks, then God comes in, and God himself appears to Job and speaks to Job and just starts telling him about all the wonders of the universe and all these majestic things. And then Job says he repents in dust and ashes. And now, what was Job repenting for, as a side note? Well, there is one thing that Job did wrong. And again, not many Christians talk about this, but it's that when all these bad things happened to him, he was self-righteous. He was saying, I don't deserve this. By the way, it's true, he did not deserve this. But he was not interested in defending God's honor. In fact, he was, at times, you can kind of see, even questioning why God would do this. And that was the thing. Job defended his righteousness. He did not defend God's righteousness. That's a hard thing. I mean, when you when you think about it. So anyway, that's the story of Job. Oh, and then at the end, I missed the important thing at the end. God gives Job a double portion, which is where the Christian term double portion comes from. But basically, he blesses him with twice better things than what he had in the beginning. And so it's a happy ending in that sense, but still, he's never really allowed to know why all that happened to him. Why was it? Well, we know at the beginning of the book, it was basically a competition between God and Satan. And anyway, so how does that relate to suffering? And I'm thinking I'll make this a two-part thing, because this video is already getting kind of long, and I don't want these videos to be too long. So for today, this will be part one, I guess, of the suffering. I just want to focus on that. Job suffered, and he suffered unfairly. He did not deserve his suffering. But what was his response? His response was, I'm righteous, and I don't deserve this. And how could God do this to me? Not even an invalid question from a human standpoint, but God still rebuked him for it. Why? Because that's not what Jesus did. Jesus was completely sinless. He did not do anything wrong in his heart or at any time ever. Not only was Jesus blameless, but he was also righteous to his core. Sinless, completely. There was no flaw in Jesus. And he suffered much more unfairly than Job did. But Jesus never questioned the Father's love or the Father's goodness. And so just consider that. The level of righteousness that God has is why we call him holy. That word holy means totally unique, totally set apart. There's nobody else like him. His good is so much better than our good. The best person on earth who does all the right things is still as nothing compared to how good and beautiful and perfect God is. And we can either accept that or reject it, because it's a hard thing to accept. When you're doing all the right things, you're like, well, why do I need to be any better? You know? But that's what self-righteousness is. And Job, he realized through suffering that he had a problem with it, and he repented, and God blessed him. So that's all for today. God bless you.